our Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Twitter live streams. So let's embark on this journey. Welcome to the Nonprofit Report, your weekly update on nonprofit organizations, issues, and leaders. I'm your host, Mark Oppenheim. Today, we will be going behind the scenes at a food bank to talk about the logistics of supplying food to people with special guests. Mark Skurnik, the food bank's Orange County, Second Harvest Food Bank of Orange County's Senior Sourcing Manager. Randy Akahoshi, a Sales and Procurement Development Specialist with one of their key donor vendors, Maui Fresh International. And Jerry Creekpaum, Chief Operations Officer of Second Harvest Food Bank of Orange County. And a reminder, Zoom attendees, that we'll take 3 snap polls during the show and we'll announce results. And questions submitted through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen will be included in our discussion. So thank you all for joining. It's just wonderful to have you here and to be talking about this really important issue. We all saw the really heart-wrenching pictures of people lining up for food. And whenever there is a disaster, as I mentioned in Louisiana in the run-up to the show, you have this real uptick. So I'm so very grateful that you can all give us some insight. And just to set you up, I'm going to go to you, Mark, first. In Orange County alone, there are over 400 people who are food insecure, and especially impacted are children, seniors living on fixed incomes, veterans, people with disabilities, those without homes, and so on. So we have a huge cohort of people who have real need, and it's a day-to-day need. You are a survival tool. So let's talk about how you actually find food so that people can eat tonight. Mark, talk a little bit about how you do your job of finding that nourishment for your neighbors.
I have a contact list that I've built up over the last 5 decades in the food business, mostly in the produce industry. Randy is one of those contacts. I reach out to them with an email blast every Monday morning, followed up by personal emails, texts, phone calls, and the like. And I get a very good number of responses for merchandise that is being made available to us. To access that merchandise, some of the companies and some of the contacts deliver to us. Randy's company is one of those. With others, we will contract with freight companies if it's a distance issue. And we have a pretty good sized fleet of our own. And using our transportation department, they make it happen for us. And they're able to pick up the merchandise and get it to our food bank in a timely manner. And that's pretty much how it works.
And you've had 5 decades in this field, right? So you've been on the business side, and now you're on the nonprofit side. Could you just sort of outline for us your various career segments? Because that expertise that you've accumulated, which you are now placing at the disposal of a civil society purpose, is so critical to the success of the food bank, to what somebody experiences when they start to pick up carrots or fresh fruit, at the outlet.
I grew up in a grocery store, and my professional life, started when I was 18, newly arrived here in California, and continued in a grocery store and a supermarket of my own. 2 other markets followed that, and working for some of the chain stores in Southern California, gravitating from clerk to produce manager to produce supervisor to produce buyer, and then to the wholesale side, starting in purveying, working for a purveyor, I should say, and then getting a job on the market in LA, where I worked with Randy's dad. That's how I first met Randy.
Oh, really? So it's a family affair. That's really great.
It is. I met I'd known his dad before, but we worked together at Marino Brothers on the LA market. starting in 1988. So I've known Randy since he was a little kid, actually as a teenager. And I really enjoyed produce more than the grocery end of the business, and that's why I ended up, in the wholesale end. And I've worked on the market, or worked on and off the market for about 33, maybe 35 years, in one capacity or another. I started going to the market, wholesale market, in 1972. That's when it was just the LA market and the 9th Street market. 9th Street market is where Randy's father was, and then in the mid 80s, that market started to move to the new LA market, which is no longer new. It's closing in on close to 40 years old, and that's where most of my contacts started to develop. It started a little bit in the early 70s, but mostly when I was actually working on the market, either as a buyer or as a salesman or as a general manager.
So Randy, when you get a call from somebody you've known for such a long time and trusted for such a long time, how does this work? How do you because you've known Mark for such a long time. When Mark says something, you have the context. He understands your language. Talk a little bit about your business first, the shape of your business, because you are a commercial enterprise, right?
Correct.
So talk about the shape of your business and how you got involved in the food bank business.
Well, in produce, we've always been involved in one shape or form in food banks and donating to different charities, different food banks and whatnot. Like Mark said, I've known him most of my life. My career started when I was probably 9 years old, going to family farms, working on farms, working at markets, and gravitated to being in the produce business because there's no business like this. And like Mark said, it is a family business. We maybe work for different companies, but we do consider ourselves as family, and we do trust each other. And we go by a general rule of thumb: a handshake is as good as anything, and we take our word for it. Not nowadays we have to sign everything and our life away, and if anything goes wrong, we're doomed. But our trust is our credibility.
So when you get a call from Mark and about a particular need, or you have a particular supply and you're reaching out to Mark, how does that go from there so that you end up with pallets in Jerry's warehouse that can then be distributed out?
What happens is I put together a list on the previous Thursday or Friday and send it over to Mark for what we think was going to be available from our growers, suppliers who have overabundance of product for the following week, whether it be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it may be. And it could be run a gamut from greens, wet greens, conventionally or organic. It can be anywhere from different types of melons, bell peppers, squashes. Here at Maui, we have a whole array of fruits and vegetables that we sell. And sometimes we have an overabundance. Our growers will have stuff and they would say, just take it. And, there's only so much demand for some of the stuff. And then before it goes bad, I give Mark and say, hey, I got bell peppers. I got 6 pallets of bell peppers, 12 pallets of zucchini. I got this and that. And then he would make the decision of what he wants, because he has, like you said, he has other suppliers, and plus USDA is part of their program too.
And you're helping the growers, because the growers, once they've grown something, they have to get that out of the field.
Correct.
Right. And they have to get it onto pallets. Now they have a transportation cost. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to ameliorate the negative impact of having oversupply, which can't necessarily be perfectly predicted on the growers. Meanwhile, you have an oversupply now because you're trying to support that extended family of growers who are connected to you, right? So Mark is reaching out to you and basically saying, hey, we have a need here. Let's cooperate together and get that need fulfilled.
That is correct. And like, there will be times where I won't have anything for him, whether it's because of quality or whether it's because of items they already have in the warehouse. But like I said, it's a partnership, and we're happy to be part of Second Harvest and help feed the families in Orange County. We hope to. I mean, we're involved with other food banks within the LA area, but we see such a need, and that one of the biggest things that we see though is that because of labor issues, a lot of these growers are leaving a lot of product in the field they can't pick. They have to let it go. So that's another big issue that's happening here within the produce industry, and we're all trying to find out what we can do. But the grower's mentality is, well, I'm not going to grow as much, but the supply and demand.
But the need is still there.
Yes.
Jerry, when it gets to you where you're orchestrating, first of all, you have to find people of Mark's deep knowledge and networks to bring into the organization. You have to be connected to people like Randy. And this is sort of a microcosm of part of your operation. How do you knit this together? Because this is a very complicated calculus. As Randy said, it changes season to season, perhaps week to week. How are you doing this? Do you have like massive computers and sort of figuring it all out for you, or do you actually rely on human beings?
Computers are definitely used, but it is the human beings that are making it all happen. In this conversation, we've been talking about relationships. The answer to the question you just asked me is very similar. Relationships on both sides of the food-bound, inbound streams, and balancing that. Mark, being a member of our organization, was extremely intentional as we were looking to improve the nutritious quality of the food that we were being able to distribute. We sought out a professional who understood produce better than we do ourselves. And that's how we met Mark, and we're extremely excited that he's on board with us. The connectivity, of course, adds to that. So it is an intentional effort of the organization to bring in more produce, more fresh, and much more nutritious product for the families that we're serving.
Now, in terms of the connection between supply and demand, this is a really worrying element. There's a huge demand that people have for affordable, fresh, nutritious product. And particularly people at the lower level of income, maybe one week they can afford and the next week they can't, right? So going into retail outlets on a regular basis is not necessarily doable. Meanwhile, as Randy pointed out, we have some issues with labor where food is left in the field. How do we deal with this on a sustained basis? Because it looks like our need is outstripping our ability to supply, Jerry. How do we make this an optimal situation where everybody can make their contribution, people can get fed? Is this really something that has to be done on a voluntary basis? Does this need to be organized in a different way across different organizations, across growers and suppliers and so on in a better way? How do you see it?
Well, I think you're touching on it well. It is, it's my personal belief that there's enough food in this country that there should not be a hunger problem anywhere in the country. It is much more about the logistics and the awareness and the knowledge of what can be done, and getting those collaborations, much like we're describing here today, where you have the supply side connecting to call it a portal. So our food bank acts as a capable agency that works with frontline hunger relief nonprofits that are doing the magic work of actually getting the food to the people right out there on the front line. They are typically smaller. They have less resources. They are very volunteer driven, and being able to partner with them and supply the food that they need to help attack the hunger issue. It is really about logistics. I mean, the more that we're able to build these collaborations and then emulate that which works and learn from what did not work and just continue to keep refining it and refining it.
So your point is that the issue is not our ability to grow. All right. The issue is really the ability to get the food from where it is to where it is needed. And that includes the issue with labor that Randy pointed out, the issue with getting it from the place where it's grown out to Randy's facility, and then the issue of getting it to your facility, and then beyond that, from your facility into the homes of individuals where they live. It's really a transportation, logistics, and coordination problem.
As well as the one very key factor is cold chain. We're dealing with perishable products a lot more than ever in food banking across the country for for very positive reasons. That adds, it is more costly. It is more speed and efficiency are of the utmost. You need to get it as soon as you can, as fresh as you can, keep it that way throughout the entire receipt to distribution process. And so it adds some complications, but it is definitely something that can be done. It is being done, and we just needs to continue.
We did get a question about what happens with spoiled food that actually, at the end of the day, you might have some spoilage there. Do you compost it? Do you just throw it away? What happens there, Jerry?
No, our organization works and is working towards becoming zero waste. All of our organic waste is picked up by our hauler and then goes to anaerobic digestion. So it is, I don't understand the process fully, but it basically just, rather than going to landfill, it gets digested much like our stomachs do. And a byproduct of digestion is an energy supply source.
Oh, that's so you're focused on sustainability as well as food sustainability, but also in other ways as well.
We are as well. We do have zero tolerance, also zero waste also. So if something is spoiled, we have a company that comes by, picks it up. Sometimes they will make it into feed, but just like El Jerry says, they do into a biosphere type of thing where it's put back into the land.
Now, one of the things that we just asked in a poll, it's an interesting response. We said if families earning an average income are food insecure, which they are, right? It's average income, they're food insecure. Think about that for a second. Average, right? Think about all the people who are earning less than the average. It's half of the people are learning, but just definitionally are learning less than that average income. Does the government have a responsibility to implement policy, tax, or legal fixes? So we just asked that as an open-ended question. 92% of those people listening said yes, and a small proportion said no. Mark, when you look at this as an overarching problem, as sort of as an American citizen who really understands the supply elements here, is this something that can be solved on a sort of an America-wide basis, or is this something that really needs to be addressed on a regional basis, as you're doing in Orange County through the food bank?
I believe that the government does have a role in this. However, we are better suited than any governmental agency to address the problems locally. So if we can get their assistance, that's great. But whether we get their assistance or not, locally, regionally, we can do the job, and we have been doing the job, and we're going to continue to do the job.
Well, it's interesting because it actually ties into what you're all saying in terms of understanding what's going on the ground. Jerry, could you just comment a little bit about what happens after the food comes into your facilities and how it gets distributed out? Because there are a number of different mechanisms, including people driving up in their cars. but there are a number of different mechanisms to get food to where it is needed. How does that function?
So yes, we utilize, as Mark mentioned earlier, we have our fleet of trucks. Now, as for people driving up in their cars, that's not how the food bank works. Again, we work with the frontline nonprofit agencies that are out there, and we direct questions and inquiries about how can I get food to those partner networks nearest where the call or the request is coming from, using zip codes, and how can we direct them. So again, keeping it as efficient as possible. We have a push model, and so that we are working with our partners, and they report the number of people that they're serving, and that is a repeated, recurring. Every month we get an update from them on how many people are coming to them and needing the assistance. And then we take everything that's in the inventory and that they have the capacity to distribute, and we push it out to them. So that can either be delivered on our vehicles, or if a partner has some capability of their own to transport it, we have a pickup portion of that as well. In addition, we have our targeted programs specifically targeting children and seniors in ways. In that ship, we will be partnering with schools or senior centers or senior living communities in getting food directly to them. We're still working with a partner when we do so, but it is much more of our involvement directly in those types of aspects.
So one of the things that I find so interesting is that this is kind of a mirror image of what Randy experiences, right? You're getting a list from your partners, your trusted partners, who you have also been doing work with for a long period of time. You're hearing about their needs. You have a supply. It's very similar, right, to what Randy experiences, and that issue of trust. Just as Randy said, his trust that he's built over the years with Mark, your trust that you built over the years with those people who are the frontline distribution force is so important.
Yes, and it's definitely trust, but it's also verify. We have a responsibility of feeding people, not and ensuring the safety of the food. As you know, I see Randy nodding. He's absolutely on board with that. Part of our commitment to our donors is that we're going to ensure that the food is distributed safely. So there are interactions and monitoring with the partner network on a regular basis, just to ensure that they are following the same steps that we all are in order to keep that food safe.
Now, Randy, in terms of anything that has to do with fresh food, right, there is a certain amount of spoilage and there's a certain amount of liability. I'm sure that the food bank is not the only philanthropic organization that you're working with. How does that function from a business point of view? Because one of the big impediments to making contributions that businesses sometimes experience is a worry that their good deed will end up being punished somewhere down the road. Are you at all concerned about those kinds of factors, and how do you interact with your philanthropic partners on those issues?
Like for us on our side, not that we can be 100% sure that everything is of quality. I mean, things will go through because it's fresh produce. But we try here, we QC it before it goes out to Mark's Place or to other entities within the city, different food banks and whatnot. If it isn't any good, like I said, we go through, we call our dump, or I'm going to say dump, but our spoilage company to come pick it up, and they do what they have to do. A lot of our grower partners understand our process. They are happy that we do it, and they're in. Going back to what Jerry was talking about, and when we were talking about labor, one company in the Midwest did something on their farm. They didn't have enough workers, and a lot of produce was going bad. They had a farm day. They opened it up to anybody who wanted to come in, pick what you wanted, take it home. And within 3 days, that one particular parcel, I think it was 8 acres, was cleaned and nothing was lost. So that's things what some of these innovative farmers are doing. Instead of letting it go, they're letting it's all usable product. They just got to go out there and just cut it. I mean, and it's a learning experience too. This is how asparagus is grown. This is how cabbage is grown. This is how lettuce is grown. So it's a teaching moment also. So like Jerry was saying that he goes into schools and senior care facilities. I'm very proponent of the fresh produce into schools and teaching them about nutrition, teaching about. But the biggest thing I get a kick out of when I talk to them about it is how things are grown, because they just see it at the store, or they see it in a can, or they see it in a box. They don't know how it gets there.
Well,
So I
especially
think,
especially the little kids who have never seen like a bean grow or
oh yeah,
peas
oh yeah.
or.
I mean, the excitement on their faces is just like, wow. To you and I, it's, well, yes, something going on. But to them, it's wonder. It's like, I want to know more about that. So I commend Jerry and his group in reaching out to the kids and to the schools to get them to eat healthy.
In many respects, what we're talking about is the origin of what the American theory, the economic theory is, right? It's not just figuring out how to extract as much as we can from me, right? It's really about the interactions and giving, right, through our economic activity, benefiting somebody else, right? Educating somebody else, communing with somebody else. It's really the social compact, right? And what you are all reflecting is a manifestation of the social compact, which was really at the founding of the United States. In terms of how you see the issue developing into the future, Mark, let's start with you, and we'll end with Jerry. We're coming to the end of our time. How do you see this business developing, Mark? You've had a very, very long experience in this field. You've seen a lot of changes. You've seen the advent of computerization and different techniques. But in many respects, so much is the same, right? It's still about trust. It's still about logistics. You still have to physically move a product from one place to another. You have to think about time when you're thinking about fresh. Do you see going into the future that there will be other challenges or particular issues that might be affecting your supply of food over the next years?
Well, here in California, water. It's been an issue. It is an issue. It will continue to be an issue due to climate change. So that will be, in my opinion, that would be the major factor, because at one time, or it doesn't matter what day of the year it is, there's something growing and being harvested here in California. Granted, we're in Southern California. We have access to apples and pears and tree fruit from Washington, same thing from Oregon, crops from all over California, onions and potatoes from Nevada, row crops too from Arizona. There's Otay Mesa along the border near San Diego, which is a port of entry.
But all along the West, it's still the water issue, right?
It is, but we're lucky that we're here and we still have access to all these different areas that we can access product from. Nogales, Arizona, Yuma, Arizona. We're fortunate geographically because of that. Yes, water to me, my opinion, is going to be the biggest factor. But it's incumbent upon me and my staff to still find the sources of merchandise and pounce on it whenever it's made available to us. That is our job. That's our goal, and that's what we do every day. Something I learned and was actually repeated to me by Randy's father so many years ago, and that was something that I learned when I was first going to the markets in LA in 1972. No 2 days are alike in the produce business. Every day is different. So when we wake up in the morning, I see Randy nodding in agreement. When we wake up every morning or every night, and we're about to go to do our job and accept the challenges of the day, it's not like yesterday, last week, last month, last year, or whatever. Brand new day, similar but brand new challenges, and we get to work.
Change is the spice of life, right? We just completed a poll and we asked, do you help or donate to food banks? And we had almost 80% of the people said that they did. And we had a previous poll which asked, had did they think that food banks were very important, somewhat essential, that they were neutral. Basically, 2/3 of people said that were either absolutely essential or somewhat essential to our economy. Randy, same question to you in terms of how do you see the future? You're working on the commercial space, you're working in the philanthropic space, you're working with your growers. What do you see the future as bringing in terms of opportunities and also challenges?
Well, I'm going to agree with Marco. It's about the water. That is going to be the major issue here in Southern California. But as far as sourcing product, we source globally. We source out of Canada, we source out of Europe, we source out of Mexico. So the amount of product that is available to us is still there. It's just that logistically, we have to get it here. And because of all the different food safety requirements that we have to go through and all the different paperwork we have to go through, we're very diligent on who we deal with. So on our supply side, we have this trust factor with our grower partners that they are going to send us the product that we will need to supply not only the retail and the food service business that we do here all in Southern California and across the country, but also have excess of product that we can donate to the food banks to ensure that they have the right product.
And Jerry, Randy set you up well with the logistics challenges, right? I mean, at the end of the day, even if you're sourcing internationally, to the extent that you cannot grow locally, you end up having to truck things in, move by rail or ship or whatever, which, we have this greenhouse gas issue and climate change. There's no easy answer, is there?
Well, that's perfectly stated. There are no easy answers, but there are efforts. And one of the efforts that we have done in the past and are doing now on a much larger scale is farming ourselves with the local farmer and the Skurnik Center, which is part of the UC campus. So yesterday morning, we planted the first acre of 45 acres that we will be growing product within a quarter mile of our distribution center. So first harvest of that expected in November, virtually eliminating all of those challenges that you just listed, or close to all of them, by doing it local, doing it very close, and in partnership and in collaboration with those who really know what they're doing. So food bankers aren't trying to be farmers, but instead working with third generation farmer A.G. Kawamura on that. And then other things are going to be just continuous improvement. Can we do it better? Can we find ways to do it faster, safer, more efficiently, and learning from others? So always being open-minded to learning something from someone else. You can't think of it all ourselves.
What a great statement to end on. This whole idea of relationships, of respecting the knowledge of different people, of being informed by generations. AG talked with me about how many generations his family has been in farming and in urban farming as well. It's so important. The human element, right? The human element, the ability to invest as a business in philanthropic activities and investing careers in a focus on strengthening civil society through your work at food banks. Thank you so much for joining us, Mark Skurnik, the food bank's senior sourcing manager, Randy Akahoshi, sales and procurement development specialist for Maui Fresh International, and Jerry Creekpaum, chief operations officer, Second Harvest Food Bank of Orange County. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us. Thank your staffs, thank your donors, thank your communities, your volunteers. It is just wonderful to be informed by your experience. Have a great day.